What's going on, guys? It's your boy. I just hit 1,000 subscribers, and here with me I have a very special guest in order for me to celebrate. I have TG. Say hello.
What's going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here. We made it. We're on 1,000 subscriber collab.
TG's here.
You know what I mean?
We're doing Orochimaru versus the Akatsuki. This won pretty much every poll that I put up, so I'm really excited to be doing this one with TG. And first of all, we're going to be talking about Hidan. So I'll just rip the band-aid off. Like, Orochimaru is slapping Hidan. Like, Hidan is just below Kakashi level, or let's just say that they're relative. Let's say Hidan and Kakashi are relative, which is just not true. Orochimaru has fear-haxed and pretty much killed Kakashi twice. You know, even back in the day. And from what we know, like, if Hidan ever wanted to kill Orochimaru, I don't even think he could do it. We were talking before and we were like, oh, well, maybe if Orochimaru bleeds for some reason, let's just say that he gives Hidan his blood. Even if Hidan cut off his own head, I don't even think it would really put him down, you know? Like, Hidan's not really doing much at all, I don't think.
I fully agree. I'm gonna be honest. Slowest member of the Akatsuki, worst aim. It's just it sucks because he gets a bad rep in these types of videos, but it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? He's like awesome level. So it's hard to like make him relevant in a lot of these discussions, to be honest, because he's pretty definitively weaker than everybody.
He is powerful. He can fight, you know, our main characters. He actually does have like decent speed feats, even though he is the slowest. He does fight Kakashi. For all that we know, Orochimaru should be faster than the Sasuke that is blitzing Sakura, who is fighting Sasori, right? So there is multiple ways to just get Orochimaru above characters at a Jonin level. It's like the whole narrative, like we're introduced to Kakashi, he's the best Jonin, and then later on in the series we're introduced to Orochimaru and Hiruzen, who are our Kage level opponents. So yeah, we can just move on to Kakuzu, which is quite a delicate situation. So TG, what do you think about Kakuzu? Like, honestly, like what do you actually think about Kakuzu? I'm going to expose TG right now.
So here's the thing. I think Kakuzu's like pretty. He's got some good showings in his fight with Kakashi. He's able to basically this Kakashi, for example, like Kakashi's able to like cancel out with his jutsu potency or just dodge Kakuzu's heart's attack. So the speed difference isn't so great in that regard. And the issue is as well is that Kakashi, and quite on top of like not being forced to use Kamui, in the next arc, it's pretty established that Jiraiya is above Kakashi. There's multiple statements about this. Like, Kakashi like notes to himself while fighting Pain, like, I can't believe Jiraiya fought this dude. Like, this is insane to me. And there's a pretty clear gap in terms of like Jiraiya versus Kakashi. So the whole point of Naruto going with Jiraiya too is that he'd be safer from the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki wouldn't really press up on Jiraiya in that regard. So it is pretty established that Jiraiya should be above Kakashi, with Kakashi being able to combat Kakuzu. It kind of extends over to Orochimaru, who kind of shares that similar lore. And the problem with Kakuzu is that he doesn't necessarily have an answer to like permanently take down Orochimaru, which is a big theme in a lot of these matchups.
Absolutely no way to take down Orochimaru. There's no way you can convince me. There's nothing that he can do. There's absolutely no way. There's no poison. There's no ceiling. There's just nothing, you know?
Nah, you could maybe say like it might be too difficult for Kakuzu like or Orochimaru to break Kakuzu's diamond hardening with like the grass longsword, which, you know, I might concede as it is very durable. The problem is though, is that like that's not Orochimaru's like only offensive countermeasure at this point. He's also gonna have the Edo Kage, at least Hashirama and Tobirama there as present as well. You could maybe argue actually one of them might be able to damage them. An example being how Tobirama, who, you know, albeit did have like a bit of a matchup advantage, he's able to block like Hiruzen, you know, everybody's heard it, reputation as the strongest Kage. His fire style flame bomb technique, like pretty much touted as one of his most prized techniques. And you kind of take that in a perspective of like potency and that being able to damage other characters like the Raikage and such, that could give you some semblance of how these Edo Kage would do against Kakuzu. The problem with Kakuzu as well is that he doesn't have any real way to, on top of Orochimaru, to take down the Edo Tensei. So it's just going to be like, it's going to be a battle of attrition to where like Orochimaru can take down the heart and eventually overwhelm Kakuzu, whereas Kakuzu can't really take down his opponents in that regard.
Yeah, and Kakashi and Kakuzu are just relative. Like, they actually just are relative. You might be able to argue, well, Kakashi had help. Dude, Kakuzu had help. He had Hidan, who's an Akatsuki member, and he also had all the masks. These masks, they actually aren't very durable. You know, Kakashi, Shikamaru, Choji, these characters can take them out. And like I said, we've seen Kakashi fight Orochimaru. He doesn't think he's Sannin level at all. And you have to do a lot of headcanon disingenuous scaling to get Kakuzu above this sort of Sannin level. And again, like TG mentioned, Jiraiya should be above Kakuzu just blatantly. I think Six did a video on this and he sort of elaborated on this more. So if you guys want to check that out, check that out. Orochimaru is just stronger than Jiraiya. It's the whole narrative. I know people disagree with this, but Orochimaru is just stronger than Jiraiya by, I would say, a fair margin. And that's just because of his hacks, his regen, his speed, the fact that he trained Sasuke even though Orochimaru is so nerfed. And Sasuke is an absolute machine at the start of part 2. And now we can transition sort of nicely into the Deidara Sasori range. I think me and TG sort of disagree a little bit on Sasori scaling, so we'll just start with Deidara. So even in the Deidara Sasuke fight, they have a little scuffle. I think they're relative. TG thinks Sasuke is a little bit stronger, but it actually really doesn't matter because Sasuke is just blatantly inferior to even this nerfed version of Orochimaru. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's no like Karin basically calls him out on it. Why are you struggling? You killed Orochimaru. He's like, bro, the only reason that even happened was because this dude was on his deathbed. And even then, Sasuke was still having issues with like Orochimaru's blood, like paralyzing the air. And it like basically he only really was able to win because he took over the ritual. So, not to like discredit Sasuke or anything, but like more so to talk about how like, Orochimaru is still blatantly above him at this point. Like there's been statements about like his chakra. Even someone of Kabuto's caliber later in the war gets a hold of some of his chakra from Anko's curse mark. A very minuscule amount, I might add. And his binding strength was like on the Edo Tensei was increased like so much more. So Orochimaru was pretty confidently above this Sasuke still.
And TG and I were talking about it and we were just like, okay, well, what about C4? Is C4 even going to be able to kill Orochimaru? And yeah, more than likely. That's actually a really good win con for Deidara. I could actually see Orochimaru getting stopped here. Only if you think somehow C4 gets out and, Orochimaru just gets caught off guard by that. But if we're talking in character, in character fight, Orochimaru would just summon his Edo Tensei and get them to fight Deidara, which even the Edo Hokage would give Deidara a hard time. I'm gonna be real,
Yeah. They're big issues, and you can even argue like if Deidara does like play a ranged game, like Orochimaru can sit back and just let the Edo Kage just fight and continuously take damage while fatiguing Deidara's chakra supply. So it really Kage like people like want to like a lot of people like shit on the part one.
They're so strong.
They're literally on par with like a full power Edo Hiruzen. Like they're able to fight him. And even like he does get gradually more fatigued. They're able to keep pace, even though they do like get limbs blown off. They're no Tensei, they keep regenning, and their jutsu do cause them a lot of trouble. So they are on that level.
I can just imagine like Deidara flying up in the sky, and then Tobirama just uses like a water bullet stream to cut off its wings,
Yeah, like what style all this crazy.
And when Orochimaru gets brought up in a lot of these videos, and I'm not hating on any creators, they never bring up the third Kazekage, which one poison will kill Deidara.
It's pretty crazy because you could like argue he has like other Kage from other villages just still in his Edo Tensei. If you want to extend that type of logic, you could say like that's actually where Kabuto probably got them from.
Yeah, I think we can give Deidara, like, we could throw Deidara a bone. We could say, like, the nerfed Orochimaru, like, the really weak one that's got no arms. I think Deidara actually might win. And that's just because of how weak he is. He uses his feet and he uses his head. Yeah, Jiraiya is at 30%. I'll leave that up to you guys. Like, what do you think? Like, who's going to win? Like, armless Orochimaru or Deidara? Because it's just so goofy because we'll get into this later, but the Sannin do get a fat power amp. I guess we can transition into Sasori now. We don't know anything about Sasori. Like, I don't think anyone in the community can agree on Sasori scaling. I've made my opinion pretty clear in a bit of my videos. TG and I were discussing this before. Even in Sasori's most charitable scaling, it's still actually questionable whether or not he can even kill Orochimaru with even poison and speed.
So I definitely and I will say like one of the big reasons like his whole shtick is the poison, the instant paralysis poison. And, everything's coded, even the microscopic grains of sand. I will say once you, and this is a big issue, once you kind of negate that, it becomes a lot tougher for him to fight a lot of people. And that just due to like a lack of AP feats for him and lack of like potency. We just don't see him breach like these crazy defenses or anything like that. But I will say, a good comparison to like talk about like Sasori's poison is that very much Sakura studies it. She studies his poison, creates an antidote, and then she creates a poison for Sasuke. And just due to like not even possessing the curse mark anymore, but having like had it, and like the power of the white snake, although that you can argue that's lost. Kakashi theorizes that just off of having Orochimaru's power, that's been long gone, poison would not have worked on Sasuke. Or like a comparable poison that should be. So when you kind of get into like full power Orochimaru, it's kind of like hard to imagine that any sort of poison would be effective. And a good comparison to like that, right, is that like the Nine Tails chakra is like described as poison. Like one hit from it pretty much like is damaging Sakura for days to come. And like Orochimaru is getting slashed by the Nine Tails chakra all throughout his fight against Four Tails Naruto. So there should be some degree of like poison resistance present in the room, to the point where we can kind of say like, okay, I do think it is a bit debatable if Sasori's poison would work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just like then you have to scale the speed of Sasori. Like, how fast is Sasori? Like Tsunade is a Sannin, okay? She's training Sakura. Sakura is just not Sannin level. And I've seen people debate, Chiyo and Sakura working together is an insane teamwork amp, But is Sakura working with Chiyo such a massive amp that it gets her to this Sannin plus level? And admittedly, Sasori did kill the third Kazekage, the strongest, Kazekage before the war arc starts. I'm going to be honest, and I hate saying this, but the Sand Village just sucks. The strongest Kazekage. What does that even mean? Like, the Kazekage always get killed. The Sand Village think that Gaara, as a 12-year-old child, is their strongest asset. How strong are these Kazekage? Are they even that powerful? How strong is like Shukaku, And admittedly, I am sort of trolling a little bit here. It's the best forms of Sasori scaling to get him like these above Sannin levels are so questionable. For all we know, like the Kazekage could have been poisoned. I do think he doesn't try at all. He's similar to Itachi in that regard. We never see Sasori go full power. But Sasori is just trying to kill Chiyo and Sakura. And people will say, well, Sakura had the antidote. It's like, okay, but you got to admit, Sasori couldn't just instantly blitz them with a decapitation. We've seen Sasuke blitz Sakura, in base, with no Sharingan activated. And Sasuke is just weaker than even nerfed Orochimaru. So it's really not favorable for Sasori at all.
I mean, if you really want to get into it, like Orochimaru does kind of clip the one dude that people use to scale Sasori's speed. You know what I mean? Ironically, which is really funny. But, maybe you could argue that's a surprise attack. Sure, fine. I'll grant you that. He just kind of pulled the sword out. But I do still think it's interesting to note that he was able to make quick work of the Kazekage and his bodyguards. That is something that did happen,
And Sakura and Chiyo kill Sasori, right? And while Sasori's dying, he says, I'm going to give you Orochimaru's location. And they're like, oh, why? And then you've got to sort of infer what that means. It sort of suggests that Sakura and Chiyo killing Sasori is such an impressive feat that he thinks they could kill Orochimaru. Okay? That's fine, but this is the nerfed Orochimaru. This is the Orochimaru that fights Four Tails Naruto and then falls over because he's so nerfed, and then he dies 2 days later. So if we use the part 1 Orochimaru with Edo Tensei, it's really hard. Sorry.
Oh.
It might actually be hard to put Sasori above this sort of even nerfed Orochimaru. Pain is like, he's too much trouble. Let's just let him join. And Sasori is, what? And that's the other thing people forget. They fought in that cutscene, which it might not be canon, but even in that cutscene, Sasori uses his best puppet, and his Orochimaru is just running circles around him and going you didn't think I was fighting seriously, did you? It's so crazy.
it's not like a bad interpretation. Like even like Obito like throws shade at Pain for like having trouble with Jiraiya. So the Sanin are built up. Like if Pain, you know, if Pain is earning shit from Obito, then like okay, let's imagine like Jiraiya, who, you know, Orochimaru should be above Sage Mode Jiraiya, at least at full power with Edo Tensei. So it's just, you know,
definitely.
It's kind of hard to imagine, especially like when, you know, Sasori's best technique kind of gets negated. It gets a lot tougher for him as a fight, to be real with you.
You got to even think narratively. Like narratively, Sasori loses early on in the chapter, and it's the characters that need to get beaten for Sakura and Chio and Naruto to get above like the Sasuke level. So I think that's pretty definitive. We could probably move on to Konan now. This part of the video is weird because she just lost to base Jiraiya.
I will say, you know, to be fair to Konan, like I'll be on her defense because I do think she slept on. I actually make this. I actually make this argument a couple times, but I actually think it's more like her fighting style, to like just tank attacks and like disperse, because like Jiraiya hits her like fire style and it has no effect. And obviously, you know, listen, we're not gonna discount the fact that like the jutsu speed was too fast, but I do not think she's above like Sage Mode Jiraiya during that fight. I think she's more, if you were gonna argue for Konan, I think she's more of a rival to like a base Jiraiya in that regard. But even then, you know, I think it is questionable.
And you know, even Pain says to Konan, don't even fight Sage Naruto. You know, don't even go there. So it's not like Konan is this Obito level killer that's gonna fight KCM level Obito, you know what I mean? Let's say like she even like has intel and absolutely finesses Orochimaru with this gigabrain plan. I don't even think she could kill Orochimaru. Dead set. Like I don't think paper bombs are killing Orochimaru.
No, not at all. You know, it's interesting that he has defenses. Like he can summon the Rashomon gates and stuff like that. If there ever is some explosions that are going on, like he can set up defenses in his way. But realistically, like the paper bombs, just, you know, they have some impressive AP. Like they blow off Obito's arm, which is actually, you know, Obito's like the guy known for taking Rasengans to the face, to the jaw, to the back. But you know, as far as that, you know, one, Obito does say he underestimates her, and B, you know, we just don't know. We don't know the upper limits of Orochimaru's regeneration. All we know is that he thinks the Susanoo and like the attacks it gives off are just not even close to like taking him down, and that's without his jutsu. So I do think that does speak volumes, and it gets a little harder to like perceive like regular paper bombs being too much for him. You know what I mean? It does seem a little.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, even the Edo Tensei aren't dying from a paper bomb. And I do like Konan. Notice how I've placed Konan above Sasori in the... Anyway, let's just keep going.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Woo.
But hey, like,
hot in here.
she did beat him in that cutscene. That's canon. I'm joking. And for all we know, guys, honestly, like in the comments, I do think that Jiraiya, for one, knows Konan and probably knows how to fight her. Notice how he went for the toad oil straight away. And Konan might be a little bit mental nerfed. You know, my friend Sasori mentioned that Pain and Konan had a conversation beforehand, and Pain doesn't actually think Conan's actually ready to face, you know, her old master, you know? So to say that she's just blatantly below signing level is kind of ridiculous. I think she does get downplayed a lot in the Akatsuki. She can fly better and faster than someone like Deidara. She is very impressive, but you need more things to take down Orochimaru. You need a little bit more in your arsenal. You need ceiling, you need crazy genjutsu, or you need an amazing explosive ability that will like disintegrate his body like Deidara's C4. So I think Konan might actually win against the nerfed Orochimarus, but again, part 1 Orochimaru should take it. I feel. Yeah. I feel in my heart.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And you know, that's good for Konan. Like I never would have thought, like before I started making videos, that Konan would ever beat up Orochimaru, but the nerfed ones possibly. I do think it's likely. And I just even want to make like a Konan video just because she's so slept on and she's so underrated, but
she's brolic, she's big, you know, she's hard body. What can you really say about it?
Let's just move on to Kisame. Now, this is gonna you're like, why is this video so long? The biggest chunk of this video is gonna be Kisame. Now, I made a Kisame versus Orochimaru video a long time ago. It was like my second video. It's kind of outdated. Let's get into Hiruzen, TG. Do you want to talk about Hiruzen?
Oh God.
God damn.
So. I mean, listen. We've all like heard the statements. I will say, right. So a lot of people are gonna kind of like come at this. Maybe comparing like Hiruzen to the Raikage and drawing some conclusions off the Raikage and Killer B and whatnot. I will say, I barring your opinion on like Hiruzen versus the Raikage, right? I do think. Right, because I think that is a very debatable discussion. Aside from Hiruzen's lore, you could, I think, like at the very least, you should be able to argue, even if the Raikage proved that Hiruzen should be able to damage him. Now, if you actually hit him, different discussion, absolutely different discussion. I personally don't believe so, but there is something to that. With the Orochimaru kind of taking on Hiruzen in more of a relative capacity. Even if you don't think the Sannin are as strong as Hiruzen, you could just argue like the Edo Tensei would be able to somewhat make up the difference at this point, and provide support to Orochimaru. So if he's on that level, with Killer B only really like surpassing the Raikage in the War Arc, you could maybe make some lore assertions that Orochimaru might be above Kisame. Now, that's obviously not going to be enough for a lot of people, because obviously people want to talk about like the chakra absorption and all this crazy stuff with their arsenal. So,
this is such a complicated topic, by the way. This is like so complicated.
The mental gymnastics. I'm hopping through hoops.
So, Hiruzen is just stated to be the strongest, like Kage. Okay. Now, you could argue retcon, because Hiruzen's kind of like the most edgy character to scale in the whole Naruto series, I'm going to be honest. Like, Hiruzen's sort of, I don't know, like, he's kind of like Beerus in Dragon Ball. He's so edgy and weird. So, Hiruzen is supposed to be stronger than the Raikage. Now, the reason this is relevant is because the Raikage and B should also be relative. B gets fondled by Kisame pretty bad. Like, just... in terms of speed and jutsu arsenal, Kisame beats Killer B pretty handedly, I'd say. And then it's just like, well, hang on a second. Why? Tsunade's a rival for the Raikage. So Tsunade and the Raikage are relative. They're fighting Madara together and whatnot. And Tsunade's a Sannin. Sage Jiraiya is a Sannin. He's an amped Sannin. And Sage Naruto is just blatantly above, Jiraiya, let's say. Like, that's just the whole narrative, it's, Pa mentions it over and over again. But then it's like, how can we get Orochimaru to this level if Jiraiya as an amped Sannin got surpassed long ago? And that's how you get, and that's where we bring up Hiruzen. So Hiruzen might be stronger than the Raikage, which is just so weird. And the reason I say this is because Edo Hiruzen comes out and does actually perform very well against the Guru statue. And me and TG talked about this for ages before recording. Hiruzen and the Raikage are both actually somewhat weakened, like sort of, in that fight. So the Raikage is missing an arm, he's fatigued, and he doesn't have his chakra cloak. But he also gets a war amp, so it's very strange to say how strong the Raikage is. But then Hiruzen is an Edo Tensei body, which should be weaker than, should be a massive nerf. It's a huge nerf for Tobirama. Madara says that, and it's a huge nerf for Hashirama. So then it's just like, what's more of a nerf? Is Hiruzen's Edo Tensei nerf more of a nerf than, the Raikage missing an arm and being fatigued? And that's really important, because then we need to scale back to Kisame and say, like, how strong is Kisame to Killer B? It's so complicated and it's so bizarre, but TG and I think we both agree that Hiruzen and the Raikage is at least a good fight, and Orochimaru won that fight. It's a lot. It
is a lot of to talk about. And the reason this matters is because Kisame's strength is extremely variable depending on who he fights. Him only, and it could be argued, right, that he approaches his full strength only when he fuses with Samehada. Yep. Since each Akatsuki member is supposed to be able to take on the Jinchuriki, with him specifically being stated Jinchuriki level when he actually fuses with Samehada. So you can maybe say that's kind of where Kisame is able to scale to the other Akatsuki members. Now, in terms of Kisame's feats, he actually does have some good feats. A lot of people will downplay him, but I mean, he is able to react to B1B and rip off his cloak. Even base B is able to dodge attacks, even though he does get attacked in the shoulder. Anything beyond that, though, is I don't want to say you're not able to use, right? But you're talking about Kisame with B's chakra,
massive amp. a gargantuan
Massive
amp, you know?
Absurd amount of amp. So it's essentially like I generally talk about like Kisame in terms of like he's able to react to like base B, version 1B, but anything other than that, like had B started in version 2, Kisame would have gotten his head lopped off. B was just more so assessing his opponent. He did not know that Kisame had that type of ability. I mean, even during the fight, had it not been for Sabo and Punta, he would have gone into full 8-tails right away, but he didn't because he didn't want to blow them away.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are variables to that fight, but again, Kisame is impressive. The problem is though is that like he doesn't really benefit from Orochimaru.
No.
And do you want to talk about this, like how this kind of like goes? Yeah, you want to talk?
Yeah, so I've talked about this in my video, and like I said, that's such an old video and it's so outdated and it's so bad, but I still do agree with this portion of the video. The Kisame that we see, and it's sort of like a Nagato situation, B just gets absorbed all the time. Anyway,
yeah,
this isn't regular Kisame. This is Kisame with a massive Bijou amp. We see what Bijou amps can do in the war. You know, we see what it can do. It's gargantuan. It's massive. It brings trash characters to like war arc level, right? This Kisame would obliterate Orochimaru probably. And would probably grab him and steal his chakra, and he would honestly grab the Edo Hokage and also sap their chakra and paralyze them. The problem with
they would just feed him, honestly. They would just feed him chakra. Funny enough.
Absolutely. The problem with this, guys, and this is like my main argument that I used in that video. Orochimaru is not going to bring Kisame up to that point. There's just no way. Orochimaru is an absolute genius. He's like as smart as Hiruzen. He's not going to just sit there and blast chakra at him. Unless you think that the Hydra in the video games uses that laser beam.
Oh my god.
Which, like, fuck off. Like, that's not happening. But genuinely, I think Orochimaru takes this because he's not going to get Orochimaru up to that level. But if we're talking nerfed Orochimaru, even the nerfed Orochimaru at the start of part 2, I actually do think Kisame takes it. And you know, let's just say like let's just say that they're equal, because I think the Raikage is very, it could be its own like 2-hour video about Raikage scaling, right?
Yeah.
If you just say that they're somewhat relative, I do just still think it goes in Orochimaru's favor. You know, 3 Edo Kage level opponents with a snake summon that all sort of fight taijutsu-wise. You know, Orochimaru and his Kage, like the Edo Hokage, they don't have that Jinchuriki, that rich Jinchuriki-like chakra for Kisame to absorb. So, like I said, it's a good fight. It's definitely a good discussion. I think Kisame is Sanin level, most definitely. Like, he's probably the 4th strongest Akatsuki member. I would say that his feats make him absolutely broken. He's fighting 7th gate guy, and guys, I know it's goofy because Kisame's fighting 7th gate guy and KCM level Killer B, and we're saying Orochimaru might be able to take it. And like Orochimaru, his chakra has like similar lore to Hashirama's. It's not obviously that level, but after Kabuto gets like in the Izanami, right? Only then Sasuke says, "Oh wow, now we've surpassed our mentor." Who is Orochimaru? Like, what? Like,
yeah,
Sasuke level? What?
I believe it's like Suigetsu makes the statement. Like, you know, a lot of people like try and like take this statement one way or another, but like if you do take it at face value, that is absolutely absurd. I mean, you know, I'll say this too: Suigetsu's no slouch. Like, he's able to react to, like, the Raikage.
He's a beast.
And, you know, Daura and stuff like that. Daura is also a beast. So, it's like, it's not like the members of Taka are, like, garbage either. No, they like, even, like, C is, like, impressed that they're still alive against the Raikage. Like, like, these guys, he's like, yeah, his reaction speeds and, like, ability to move are on par with Yellow Flash. These guys are actually really good. So, and, like, he looks at Sasuke, by the way, with, like, his MS, and he's like, dude, the shinobi world has to be evolving for this guy to be like this. Like, it's actually crazy. So, it's like, Taka and MS, you know, Sasuke, I'll say as well, are just absolutely insane. So, I don't think that's like an anti-feat for Orochimaru at all either.
And like, that might be consistent. Like, that statement actually might be consistent if you think Hiruzen can fight the Raikage. You know what I mean? That's... The Sanin do get a fat power amp in the series. I don't think Kishimoto actually intended them to be that strong. I know he just spent like 20 minutes talking about Kisame and Orochimaru, but it's a good fight. I'll say that. It's a good fight.
Yeah, it's a very good fight. I think it's very interesting because it's like, I do think this is like two opponents. It just honestly, I think it's an interesting fight. It is a lot. There's more. The deeper you go, there's like more topics to talk about. So I do think it is very interesting.
But hey, like guys, full power Orochimaru is sure. This is what we're talking about. I think any form of nerfed Orochimaru, any form of like Jonin Orochimaru, any form of the Second World War Orochimaru, he would lose to Kisame pretty handedly. I'd say that.
Yeah.
But I'd say that's where Orochimaru sits in the Akatsuki. He's like Kisame above or below Kisame level, but blatantly above everyone else,
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I actually think like he's like the fifth or fourth strongest member. At least at that time, maybe you could argue Warwick Orochimaru would sit a little differently, but he would just be like stronger with added jutsu bonus, but you wouldn't really be able to quantify any of that realistically speaking. You just say he's stronger. After that, you have like Itachi, who already smoked Orochimaru, like with base Sharingan Genjutsu. So no, we're not talking about Orochimaru versus Itachi. That's very self-explanatory. Even after the Hiruzen fight, he never. Even with like the knowledge that he had Hashirama and Tobirama, he did not think he would have been able to smoke up Itachi like that. So no, there's no question. There's no question about Itachi versus Orochimaru at all.
Yeah.
Maybe Pain versus Orochimaru, I don't think is. I'll say this like to talk about this because I think Pain versus Orochimaru is a little interesting, but
same.
I don't think that's too. Yeah. I don't think. I think Pain does dominate for a couple of reasons. A right. He does so well against Jiraiya. And honestly, the only hit, Jiraiya only gets one hit against Pain. And that's the initial hit where you could argue like he's potentially mentally amped due to like how he's getting ready to take down Pain and all this. Yeah. And it's crazy, right? Because right after this fact, he shoots his strongest Sage Mode attack, gets blocked easily by Pain. He tries to take out one of the weaker paths, not even the Diva path, in like a smoke screen. He gets handled while the path is blind in pure taijutsu. No issues casually. So his physical dexterity is nothing. He gets pierced by the Rinnegan rods, even with his enhanced Sage Mode durability. He just gets absolutely dominated by Pain at a certain point. So honestly, it's probably one of the close. This isn't even all six paths together, or like the strong, like the Diva path being the strongest one. So you kind of get that, right? And then you're like, okay, if Orochimaru is like a relative to Jiraiya, right? Or even so, it's just kind of like domination, especially when you consider like the Rinnegan rods and how they would absolutely be detrimental to Orochimaru.
They might stop him regenerating. Honestly, they actually might stop him from regenerating.
You even see this with like Kakashi when he gets tagged instantly, and like you see this with Naruto, like he like feels Nagato's chakra and he's able to trace it back. And the problem is that these rods, on top of being detrimental for Orochimaru, are just going to like pretty much stop the Edo Tensei in their tracks. Especially since like
they've done it before.
Go ahead.
They've done it before. Yeah. They've done it to Hashirama of all people, right?
Yeah. And you can maybe argue like that's Madara, but nah, like it's been shown.
Yeah.
it's shown at certain levels. So the Rinnegan rods are especially like with these inferior Edo Tensei, they're just way too much at this point. So on top of Pain just like having these raw stats, and a lot of people say like Pain is like KCM1 level, which I think is very fair, especially since like Geto absorbed it. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So no, Pain's on a whole nother tier at full power. I fully believe that. I don't think he's kind of a hard counter to Orochimaru. What do you have to say? I've been talking for a minute.
Oh, you're right. I know this is a little bit of a yes man thing, but we did talk about it sort of before. I do, however, want to bring up some Pain downplay. So people look at Pain versus Konoha and like to downplay, I don't want to name anyone, but people do like to downplay Pain's trash bodies, right? These Pains are just relative to Sage Jiraiya in speed and attack potency. And then like he looks at those three, like I'm using air quotes here, you can't see, like bum paths, like really shit paths of Pain. He runs away from them. He straight up runs away from them and has to use prep time. Like they are just straight up relative.
We need
to
a new
Jiraiya.
Strategy.
This is him with Ma and Pa, and Ma and Pa are also packing heat. You know what I mean? There's Sage creatures which should be relative to base Jiraiya, I'd say. So there's 3 Sani level opponents and 1 like Amp Sani level opponents that can't even land a scratch on the 3 paths of Pain, you know?
I'll add a couple things too, because you're preaching right now. A couple things. Like Ma and Pa also act independently, so they're more than just like support. Like they'll throw smoke bombs for Jiraiya and like throw their own jutsu out. Pain is just an absolute animal at this point. I don't really see the way for Orochimaru at this point.
And Orochimaru, we've just brought up all these characters, and we've brought up how Orochimaru has answers to all these characters. You know, we've said the poison's not going to work, but
questions.
Circling back to Pain. Pain just has all the answers for Orochimaru, all of them. He has the speed and the power to deal with Orochimaru, and the human path can suck up the souls of the Edo Tensei and Orochimaru as well. Like, there's just no way Itachi and Pain are losing to Orochimaru. Orochimaru, like, thinks he can take out Itachi and is laughing at his Susanoo. He's going like, oh, I'm going to kill you, Itachi. Like, this Susanoo ain't shit, you know what I mean? You know what? People like to downplay Itachi because of this. You know what Orochimaru thinks he can do? He thinks he can beat the Itachi that is seconds away from death, blind, and coughing up blood, and he still gets speed blitzed by him. So no, I love Orochimaru, but
it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. I mean, that's the whole point. Like, the whole reason he even wanted Sasuke was because Itachi was out of the question. So no, it's like pretty. You'd be like very disingenuous to say otherwise, in my opinion.
And I don't even think we have to bring up Obito. I mean, maybe Orochimaru has the brain to figure out Kamui. I honestly think that, but
I have a good way of putting it. Honestly, like, if you want to look at it, like, Orochimaru's like talked about. Like when Hiruzen's like, when they're talking about Orochimaru, they're like, but if, you know, the fourth Hokage were alive, this would not be an issue. And then like Hiruzen's like, stop that. So it's like, you know, Orochimaru, I'm gonna say that like Orochimaru's not as strong as like base Minato. Now maybe you don't think he like that. No, it's not a question. And like Obito's performing these feats at 14. So it's like, you know, and maybe you say like, here's the bottom line is like he should be relative to Minato, as even Minato like concedes like that Obito is a threat to him.
Oh yeah.
And it's a very close fight. Like it like literally like that fight was one move away for either side winning. So it was kind of like people want to like sleep on Obito, but that fight was an all or nothing fight. It was pretty much like just whoever tags the other first wins. That's pretty much it. That's the name of the game. Yeah, it just seems pretty, you know, I don't think there's too much discussion to be had there. You'd be weird to like, I don't know who's arguing that, but you'd be weird too. I'm gonna be honest. So yeah.
Unless you say Orochimaru summons the Edo Hokage from the war and then summons Minato to fight Obito.
Maybe,
in which case he has
yeah.
the seal on his back.
yeah. Then I'll give it to you. Then you got that shirt. But yeah, nah. Otherwise, I don't know what you're doing, and you just, I don't know. You haven't read the series. That's pretty much all I can say.
I will say that War Orochimaru probably puts in the work against Pain and Itachi with those Edo Hokage. But that is like me, Loco, and Prod, we have a Sannin video. We talk about War Arc Orochimaru. We do think he's the strongest Sannin. You can take it or leave it, whatever you think about that video, but I do think War Orochimaru is a serious threat to these characters, but his scaling is so headcanon. We just don't know anything about him. We don't know anything about his speed. We don't know how he fights because he literally just bites, you know, Tobi Zetsu and then runs away. So yeah, with those Edo Hokage, he's obviously beating the Akatsuki. No question, Hashirama's beating the Akatsuki. That's not too much of a stretch, but I will say that I think TG and I did a pretty good job here. Let us know what you disagree with. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like that's about where Orochimaru is placed. That's where the Sannin are in the Akatsuki, just blatantly below Itachi Pain level. And then
that's a lot of people I'd argue, honestly. Like, it's pretty, like, that happens a lot with these discussions, because, like, narratively, like, Obito, Itachi, and Pain are just these narrative juggernauts. Like, they're not surpassed till the War Arc. Like, and even then, they're still very relevant in the discussion against a lot of people. So no, they're still, they're just absolute animal. And then like, there's a reason like Nagato with gray hair and Itachi are called the strongest Edo Tensei that Kabuto has. There's a reason for that.
They have multiple statements calling them invincible. Itachi has statements calling them invincible. Pain has invincible statements. You know, Obito, like, they're just you're exactly right. 80%, 85% of the series would get bodied by Itachi, Pain, and Nagato. And I think Orochimaru does pretty well in the Akatsuki. He's a perfect fit. He does very well, but
I think it was pretty fair, honestly speaking. Like, it's a lot of honestly, like Orochimaru is just like a juggernaut. Even during the Akatsuki days, like and honestly, like he's just him. There's no real way to talk about it. He's just him.
Yeah, you got to put some respect on my boy Orochimaru. He's probably like in my top 5, top 10 favorite characters. He's definitely the MVP of part 1. He's got some of the coolest jutsu. He's got some of the coolest character design, I feel. And yeah, guys, definitely subscribe to TG. TG, thank you so much for coming on the channel and taking a good chunk of your day out to be on the channel and record this fire video with me. I really appreciate it.
No problem, bro. I had to come through and let him know about Orochimaru.
We're going to put some respect on my boy. Nah, guys.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you subscribing, guys. Thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. This is literally like a dream of mine since I was 12 years old. I love doing this. I love having different people on the channel. And I love seeing you guys engage with the content. Let me know what you think. How strong is Orochimaru? Boruto Orochimaru probably slaps, but I don't want to get into Boruto. Let's just leave that alone. We'll end the video on that. Boruto Orochimaru, sure, wins.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'll catch you all later. Bye.